A lot going on this week, from questions about the death penalty here in Arizona to the Supreme Court handling Kari Lake another loss. Here to talk about that is Democratic consultant Stacy Pearson and Republican consultant Lisa James. Thank you both for being here. Let's start with that Kari Lake ruling. The Supreme Court basically kicks out 6 of the 7 complaints there. What does this do for her political future? What happens now?
I think largely that's going to depend on what happens with the one that did go back to the court and how that question proceeds, which is, I think it's important for people to understand they are not saying that anything was done wrong. They're saying you didn't answer this question.
Yeah, and that is the thing. It's important for people to know that the thing they did kick down to that lower court, kick it back to, is not going to change the outcome of any election.
Correct. And this is not the first time the Arizona Supreme Court has kicked back to the lower court a request to show their work. And so that's what we're seeing today.
Okay, and you know, a lot of questions speculation around Kari Lake, her political future. I mean, what do Republicans think is going to happen with her? Do they suspect that she's going to jump into this Senate race that we're going to see next year?
There's a lot of conversation around a lot of candidates, and she's certainly going to be on everyone's list. Whether or not she makes that move remains to be seen. I know there are a lot of people angling, and she won't be alone.
And what's the appetite with Republicans right now when they talk about Kari Lake, when they talk about people that have denied election results and whatnot? What is the appetite?
I think in general right now, Republicans are hungry for a win. And so they're going to be looking for who can appeal to those, not only win a Republican primary, but win a general election. And last cycle did not go well for us. And I think there are a large group of people that are looking for that magic candidate who can do just that, who is not giving up any conservative positions or principles, but that can speak and appeal to those independents that are growing every day.
And, you know, how are Democrats looking at this? Do they want another shot at Kari Lake, or they were like, rather leave that alone and face somebody else?
Oh, I think the more extreme the Republican candidate is, the better it is for Democrats, and even for Senator Sinema in that position. So there is
independent
Senator Kyrsten Sinema. So certainly that all eyes are on who comes out of that primary, and whether or not the GOP can get past this level of extremism and find a statewide electable candidate.
Well, since you brought up Sinema, let's stick with that. Now, you support Sinema.
I do.
You're a supporter of that. We've seen more sniping coming from Senator Sinema, the recently declared independent senator from Arizona. There was a Politico article where she was basically criticizing Democrats in there. I was quoted as saying that, you know, she doesn't caucus with them because their lunches are stupid, and she made fun of them for eating Jell-O. What is happening here? Why is this happening? Why is she taking shots like that?
This outrage machine is set to high, and we're so far before the November 2024 election. We're going to see this over and over again. And it's not news that Senator Sinema wasn't caucusing with the Democrats. She hadn't been for a number of years now.
But they continue to snipe it at leaders and you know, Democrats and whatnot. Like, what is going on here?
I think it's a giant nothing burger in that they are eating Jell-O. I don't know if folks have seen.
I don't know how that's a thing to like be, you know, making fun of. What do you take of this? Is the Republican? You read these stories and you're like, what's your take?
Well, first I'll say this: that the Democrat Party has their own extremists, and that's an issue in both parties. So, and I think that I think one thing that needs to happen is people need to show up in primaries and vote. And I think that we're getting results of people that are not turning out, and frankly, and love you, but the media gives attention to those that are most extreme. It happens. But regarding Senator Sinema, I think that she's in this unique position. They need her. So she has the power to pretty much say whatever she wants right now. Having said that, we don't know if she's going to throw her hat in the ring or if she's going to move on to something else. So all that makes a difference.
Yeah, and that was my next question for you. I mean, I talked to a lot of folks. They don't think that she is going to run. Now, to be fair, Sinema doesn't have to say whether she's running right now or not, and she's got a long time to make that announcement. She may not have made up her mind already, but she's got a long time. What's your sense? Did she jump in?
Well, I think she is focused on the job she was elected to do, which is represent the entire state of Arizona, which still has a Republican majority. So I think the policy that we see over the next 18 months or so is going to matter just as much as whether or not a hot take from a fundraiser dinner makes the news.
And, do you think Sinema has a chance of winning if she runs as a third party? Personally, I look at this and people I talk to, I think it's a steep hill for a third party candidate to win in Arizona.
I think it depends on who the candidates are for the Democrats and for the Republicans. I really do. I think that and look at the increase in independents. So who the parties nominate matters, and that will determine if she has that path or not.
Right, and let's move on now. Let's talk a little bit about the governor. A couple of things this week. We saw the Supreme Court came down and said, that she doesn't have to carry out these death warrants. Now, if people remember, they had issued a death warrant, and Governor Hobbs is not going to carry this out. Republicans were claiming that she had to. The Supreme Court has come down on Hobbs' side. That's a win for the governor this week, correct?
It is, and it was very procedural, right? The governor asked for clarification on what drugs were being used. Is that Windex in that syringe? Yeah. Is this, some concoction somebody made in a basement, or is this an approved end-of-life drug for an incarcerated individual? And so, I think the pause on that is good for humanity. And,
your take on this, Republicans are going to be criticizing her for not carrying this out. And Republicans have been saying that she shouldn't be doing this. Do you think there's any damage politically on this?
I think she's made a political calculation, and the law in Arizona allows for the death penalty, and there are victims here, real victims, including at this point, you might want to say the person who's intended to be put to death, who has asked for this to be carried out. So I think it's a very serious subject, and I think it needs to be done humanely, but I think that in the end, people are expecting her to carry out the law.
Yeah, and let's stick with the governor. She made her latest trip to the border. It's her third trip to the border since taking over the office. She's sending a clear message that she is focused on the border, but is it realistic to expect her to really get much done down there as a state governor?
I wish she had more she could do. We're certainly at the mercy of the federal government, but just prioritizing the needs of the communities that are at the border that have the influx of humanitarian crisis, getting folks to processing facilities, getting folks medical care, all of that needs to be on top of mind for her, and it is, and it's great. And
the governor, again, she's said all along that when it comes to her predecessor who set up the border strike force, she said again when she was down at the border last week, she says she still wants to disband that, take the money and spend on that and use it in other areas of law enforcement. Do you think she might take a political hit for that and open herself up to a lot of criticism?
I think actions speak louder than words, and she's going to have to prove that she can do something about the border issue, which in all honesty is a federal issue. And there are laws in place, and our federal government and our state government need to enforce those laws.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here. That is all the time we have today, but be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.